And as I was saying, we really, really need to take the time to be conscious and aware right now. Because when we're not, we really let the subconscious mind absorb all of the connections and energies of everyone on the planet. On some level, we do. We're all one, we're all connected. And therefore, when we are balanced, when we come from a place purity of thought, of light, then it will affect others. And this is the true way that we can change what's happening in the world, even though it seems impossible, but it is actually a reality. So whenever you feel really stressed, and we will, because the planets really have a major effect on us, and they're going to some difficult places. But remember, the more difficult it is, the more opportunity there is to grow on a spiritual level. And that's what we're all here for. We all know this, but boy, do we forget it when we get into these stressful positions. And everywhere around the world, everything is heating up. Every time we go through a cycle of Mars going retrograde, which is coming up, it's not here yet, but we're actually already in the shadow phase of it, just like we talk about the shadow phase of Mercury. All the planets have a shadow phase. And what is the shadow phase? It is simply the degrees that the planet spends when it's in its retrograde cycle. So Mars is not retrograde yet. It won't be retrograde to the 30th of October, but it's already traveling in those degrees that when it is retrograde, it will cover those degree markings. That's what the shadow phase is. So Mars entered into the shadow phase recently. And that's why you're starting to feel a bit more intensity, conflict, anger, aggression. But don't worry, it doesn't have to affect you when you come from a place of higher consciousness, because you understand what's going on. You're not controlled by it. When we can get outside of ourselves and see how we're reacting, that's where we have more control. And that's where we can change ourselves. So watch yourself and always remember, and this is constant, we have to remember that we must treat other people exactly the way that we would expect to be treated, regardless how they treat you. You will always have respect and care and compassion for others, even though they may be verbally attacking you or being angry at you. Remember this. This is always helpful to remember when people suddenly, unexpectedly attack you for any reason. They're projecting their stuff onto you. So even though you may think, oh, this person's terrible, they're doing this, they're doing that, remember that that's their stuff. They're angry. It usually doesn't have anything to do with you, even though they may be directing it at you and telling you you're the cause, you're the reason. Realize that that is their stuff that they project onto you because they're not being responsible to own it, and realize exactly what they're doing. But here's what I always remember. They're not happy if they're doing that. We want to be happy. So we don't take it on when people do such a thing. But we also don't point the finger back, because then that puts us where we're on their level. So you just kindly realize they have issues and they have problems, and maybe you can somehow give them compassion. Just put yourself in their place. What are they feeling? Why are they so upset? And respond to them with as much kindness and respect that you would want to receive. So we're always looking at life and people, because that's why we're here. We're here to interact with people. Remember that the most important tools in this world, telephones, computers, everyone's on them most of the day because we really do want to interact and be with other people. That is our quest in life, to be in relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's love relationships. That is really what all of us yearn to be in. And sometimes I know you feel like, no, I don't. I'd rather be with my dog because my dog doesn't judge me. But that's not the answer. We're here to relate to people. We're here to understand ourselves through our relationships with others. And there's nothing better than feeling love from other people and camaraderie and connection. That's why we quest these relationships with other people. And yeah, it's really easy to be here with all of you because we're all coming from like-mindedness. That's the easy part. But when we close our computers from this meeting today, we got to get back into the world, and we got to contend with others that may not be on the same wavelength that we are. And that's okay. We're here to heal ourselves through our relationships with others, but we're also here to wake up the world by coming from a place of compassion and light to help others that are really struggling right now. And those people that may be, coming at you with whatever, and they will with Mars going retrograde, let me tell you, this is your opportunity to be the light, not be combative, not come back at them, and to really work on helping others balance. Because if everyone's going to come from a place of anger, frustration, and rage, we're going to have a big war on this planet. And it may come to that, but remember, as light workers here, we are trying to avert any of the major issues that this planet may go through. And even if we don't, sometimes things have to happen, you will be in a good place. You will come from a place of happiness because that's what you're projecting out there. And I guarantee you, you're going to be attracting more people like yourself, because what we put out, it is reflected back to us. So I know we've gone through all of this many, many times, but hey, we got to be reminded constantly when the planet gets into this type of rage and position. So I pulled some pictures today. They always really give us such deep meaning as to what we're here to learn. And the first one I pulled, taking it out of the plastic this time, is this. And here is the whole photograph. I hope you can see it. I know there's a little shiny, but it's a waterfall. And here is an individual that looks completely, totally invigorated, free from the water. What does water represent symbolically? Cleansing. What do we use water for? Cleansing. And we couldn't be alive on the planet if it weren't for water, as most of our bodies are contained with water. But I've often looked at waterfalls as extra powerful healers. Why? Because let's consider what a waterfall is. A waterfall is generally from the rains on mountains that have trickled down, and many, many times it's from snow that is melted, not always, but a waterfall is the circulation of the water. And what is water besides cleansing? And in this case, I think it's totally cleansing, because I feel like this person looks invigorated, free from the water. And it's a waterfall, and water that's gone from the top of a mountain and is running downward. Tell me what that means. Water that's running downward from a mountaintop actually is a return The water in its cycle, from the top, it returns to the rivers. It's got a whole cyclic process that the water comes up into, whoops, sorry guys. So the water in this process will come up the mountain and it comes back down to the earth. So what do I look at that as? As receiving. The water from the top receives and infiltrates back into the earth in a big cyclic process that can come in the rains and create the snow at the top of the mountains. It melts, it comes down as water, or somehow it flows in this cyclic process. But there's more to this picture than what you're seeing here, because if you'll look, there is another individual. I can't see it right now. Can you see it? There's another, let me look at that better. Yeah, you can't see it as well, but let me show you. There's another guy in the picture right there. See right here? He's kind of hidden a little bit. He's not as free. He's kind of in the moment of what I call, well, water represents emotion. He hasn't come to that place of freedom yet, I think. But, you know, he's still being cleansed. But this tells me that we can come to this, from this to this, through the healing of emotion, because water is emotion, and the whole cyclic process that we have to go through in healing. You know, y'all probably think I'm making a lot of this, but this is why I chose these pictures. I actually do come from all this symbology of what rain and water, the cyclic process. And a waterfall to me is the water coming back down to the earth. So I look at that as receiving energy. Waterfalls are receiving energy back to the earth. And this particular person is free, but this particular person is drenched in the emotion, but he's bound to get here, from here to here. Now, when I show you the second picture that was on the other side, this story is going to become even more vivid. Let me see right here. Okay. This is a very interesting picture and has deep, deep symbology. This is a photographer in, looks like a place like the Grand Canyon, but one thing for sure, it's a desert. But it's the shadow. What do we think of when we think of shadows? Well, we think we all have a shadow side, right? And what is our shadow side? Our shadow side is simply that side. One time I looked it all up to really understand psychologically what is meant by the shadow side with, you know, Jung and all the great psychologists. When they talk about our shadow side, it's like the side of ourself that reacts like a child. And it's not the side of us that we're particularly proud of, because it's, you know, when you're a child, and I just spent some time with my grandchildren. So a child, and those of you that have children, their reaction is when they're in their twos, that everything's mine. So they feel like they have to grab things and hold on to them because they're mine. See, when you're a child, you play out more of the shadow side. You're not conscious, you're not aware, you just react. You take your toys from other kids because you feel like they're mine. So that's an interesting concept. But when we grow older, guess what? We learn how to share, right? We learn how to share. But this is the shadow side, the dark side of us, that we react that everything's mine. Let's grab it from everyone else. There's not enough to go around. The belief in lack and limitation. But as we grow older, we start to become conscious and aware. But this is the shadow side. And the shadow side is a part of us that reacts. and doesn't think consciously. So we have to remember to be thinking consciously. Otherwise, guess what? We're going to play out our shadow side. And our shadow side is the side that I really think is coming out in the world right now. So that's the shadow side, just reacting. And you know, when I and you know, forgive me, but I watch the news just every now and then. I don't watch it continuously because it's so depressing, but I watch it every now and then, and I watch both channels, you know, to see what both sides are feeling. Because you gotta see what's going on in the world. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think both sides are acting out their shadow side, because, you know, one's blaming somebody for being, you know, so evil, and so is the other side. What in the world is going on? How can we have a world of peace and prosperity and goodness when everyone's saying the opposite? They're saying the same thing about each other. They're so evil. Both sides are. You know, so what does that do when you don't have anyone that's coming from a place of how can we work together to make our world work? We're going to have some big fights. And of course, where the planets are going is even more difficult. So, yes. So before we go to the astrology, I wanted to get a little feedback, because I'm sure there's some people that saw some different things. These are two of one. And another thing about this kind of represents the cross, you know, the person with their hands out. And with the water, it kind of reminds me, really, the cross. You might even think about how Jesus was depicted on the cross in this same kind of position. If you want to look at it like that, what does that represent? And I think that represents the quality of, and this is going to play out astrologically too, of Virgo Pisces, where we have this opposition I'll be talking about in a minute. What is Virgo? Virgo is so critical, but Pisces can be, those two signs together can actually reflect sort of like the victimization, the victim. You know, when I think about all of my days going to church and looking at that cross with blood and nailing to the cross, it is the most morbid, terrible vision of suffering I have ever seen. And to make children look at that and say, this person died on this cross for your sins, to me, it's kind of like suffering and victimization. I mean, I know that's not what they meant for it to come out as, but to me, it kind of feels like that. And I feel like a lot of people are going to come from that place of being victims. That's why I'm bringing it out. And remember what I say about victims, they'll never get anywhere. Why? Because victims always blame everyone else for their problems. So in other words, they don't take charge to figure out what they can do to change the predicament. So they stay in their position as a victim. Now, what I kind of get with the water here, he's freeing himself as a victim. That's what I want you to know. This is a beautiful symbol. And this guy will get there, but he needs to see, or he needs to climb the mountain, climb up and do the work to be free from the emotional patterns and victimization of the past. But he will, and we will too. But you know what we've got to do? We've got to own our shadow. Our shadow side is going to be how we are going to release ourselves from this victimization. And so what does that mean? Look at yourself. You know what your shadow side is. You know how you would react when you react in a negative way, and you kind of look at that. You go, I can't believe I just did that. But we all have it. We can't help it. There's two sides to us. But what am I asking you to do? To get out of this darkness and into the light. This is the shadow side, the darkness. And he, through releasing the emotional bonds of the past, he's free from the victimization. That's how I see it. So that's the message that I think I want you guys to carry with you throughout the week. And as I went over, hold on, this just fell. The things that I wanted us to come from this week with a better understanding, here is what came to me. There was 3 of the 25 messages from the book on success, which is the Success Principles. 3 of them stood out to me for us to take on for the next week till we meet again. But I want you to practice this. Remember, we all need homework. We all need our tools, right, to remember. And trust me, I need them as much as you guys do. That's why I'm doing this class. So what the first one that popped off the page to me was transcend your limited beliefs. You know, we all have limited beliefs by being human. We don't think in the realm of prosperity all the time. We think there's not enough to go around. We start worrying about money. Stop that. There is enough to go around, but when you start worrying about it, as we all do, that's going to limit the amounts of money that gives you freedom and prosperity. So transcend those limited beliefs this week. Every time you start thinking, oh, I can't do this because of money, or I can't do that because I don't have the ability, I'm not strong enough, I'm not courageous enough, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, is that the most ridiculous thing that we all do? Yes. We have to transcend that limited belief. Remind yourself, all of those fears are nonsense. You are creating those fears. And that is your limited beliefs that you're holding yourself back from your greatest good and prosperity. Okay. Next, the next one that popped off was embrace change. We cannot be doing the same old thing and expect our lives to get better. You got to change. So embrace the change. And sometimes that can be as little as just driving a different route to where you usually go. Because what happens when we embrace change and do something different, we get a different experience. So let's not be so habitual and do the same old thing every day. Force yourself to be uncomfortable and do something a little different. It doesn't have to be massive. Just do some little things. It feels uncomfortable too because we are totally creatures of habit. We love to go sit in the same position in classrooms. We love to go the same route in our transit to certain places. We eat the same things at the same time. Let's be more adventuresome. This is going to create a different experience. And all of those limited beliefs, get rid of those. That's a much needed change that we all need. And so here's the last one that actually felt more powerful for us to look at, but they're all along the same lines, really. It's all in what we need to do this coming week. Experience the fear and take action. That's that is part of embracing the change. So let me repeat that. Experience the fear and take action. Remember what I said, the definition of what courage is? To feel the fear and do it anyway. That's what courage is. And everyone that I tell that I do a chart reading for, I say, you are supposed to be a public speaker. And they all say, oh my God, that's the scariest thing in the whole world. That's mortifying. I can't get up and speak in a crowd. But so many people, I was one of the most, my whole throat would become closed up and I couldn't get a word out. And for those of you that get the magazine, Joni Patry's spiritual Astrology Insights, and you read the interview of Joe Vitale. He is who we interviewed for the month of September. I could not believe how he said he was more than mortified to speak in public, more than mortified. And you know what he said in the interview, which is so true, because his dad belittled him and his dad was so hard on him and beat him, he never felt like he was good enough for anything. And I have to say, you who were in the class when Joe did our very first speaker thing here in the Shooting Stars, he is a meticulous public speaker, one of the best I've ever seen. I've seen him out there on stages, and I'm just awestruck of the fluidity and how he makes such beautiful, candid points when he speaks. Now, there's an example of somebody that thought they could never, ever get up and speak in front of public. So if you think, oh my God, I could never, ever do that, I felt that way too. And you know what? I enjoy speaking publicly now. For maybe 1 second, I might be a little apprehensive and scared. But the minute I get out there and I start speaking my truth, I'm empowered. And it makes you feel empowered to empower other people. This is true power. This is what I've always said. True power is empowering others. It's not about your own ego. It's not about you. It's about empowering other people. And I hope to God that's what I'm doing in this class, empowering every single one of you, because that's my purpose in doing that. And the more light we have infiltrating in the world, the more powerful and better this world becomes. And one thing I always assure you, the better your life's going to become, because when you come from that place, it's reflected back to you. That is the law of the universe. We are big mirrors. Wherever we go, whatever we're putting out there is being mirrored back to us. Maybe you don't see it all the time, but it definitely is the truth and reality. So once again, and that was probably what Joe told us. He said, take action. So experience the fear and take action. So we all have these fearful feelings that we're not good enough, we're not going to say the right thing, nobody's going to like us. You know, all that stuff did start in childhood. You know, all those experiences of being made fun of, bullied, we all had something to do with that, you know, where people made us feel less. And then we felt like there was something wrong with us, and we took it, but realize what I said earlier, it's others projecting their garbage onto you. Has nothing to do with you. And when we come from speaking our truth that comes from our soul and our spirit, only good's going to come out of your mouth. And I always tell Shri and Madeline and all my friends, I always say, I don't know what I'm saying, because when I finish, I don't know where it all came from. We all have that power, because we all can hook into the divine and speak our truths that comes from the divinity that's within every single one of us. You would not be alive on this planet if you weren't connected to the spirit of the divine within. And it speaks out when we start hooking into it and getting out of our fears and thinking we're this, that, or the other, that came together from all of our childhood experiences when we're growing up. We're so insecure when we're children. We don't know what the world's all about, and we're scared. And when people tell us something that we're scared about, like you're not good enough, or, you know, and I think Joe said, his dad said, he was, terrible things to him, terrible things to him. How in the world he woke up and discovered who he really was in all of his great talent. This is what happens when we tap into that spirit and the divine. all of us have that power, and every single one of you should be projecting your power, whether you do it just one-on-one with your friends or in a group. And I'm going to give all of you the opportunity in these meetings to do so, to express your light. What do you feel, and how can you help this group better understand what we're going through during these incredible transformational times on the planet? So now that I've spoken about our lessons, what we're going to work on, let me repeat them again. Transcend limited beliefs, embrace change, and experience the fear and take action. And so do you have a burning desire right now to share what you saw in those pictures, along with our 3 lessons to take with us for the next week? So I want to get what you felt this image symbology is all about before we go on to the astrology. So now I want to open up the door for anyone to share your feelings and thoughts to help us better understand what we're seeing here.
Well, hi. What I noticed, I agree everything that you said, because I was writing it down and you were saying it right after. I was like, yeah. When I saw the guy with the heavy, the waterfall coming down on him, I saw it as being that waterfall, that pressure. And sometimes it's fun to feel that pressure of the waterfall. It's like a massage, but it's fun to be in there. But it's also fun to be in the freedom area where you're light and the water is just, the mist is coming around you and not pressing down on you. So you have the choice to go into a certain feeling, like duality of earth we live on. You have the choice to go one way and to the other way, and then you can decide which way, and one way is not better than the other. And the same thing with our emotions about the shadow side. Sometimes, we have, oh, if I'm a jealous person, oh, that's bad. Oh, I'm a giving person, oh, that's good. It's like we have this judgment already. And instead of just accepting it as being, well, maybe that jealous side of you keeps you out of trouble or keeps you from getting had by, somebody or whatever it is, it keeps you safe. And that's your inner knowing is doing that to help you out. It's not like, oh, I have to judge it. So when you said embrace the shadow side, I feel like the shadow side makes us embrace that side that we judge as being bad, but that's unconditional love if we can accept that side. And the minute you accept that side, like you said as well, that everything kind of goes away. Once you embrace that, you can deal with it better, and you're not fighting it. You're not telling, shut up, don't talk to me, don't come up in my life, because you're trying to keep it down. But it's like a kid who's yelling at you, mommy, 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 and then you just try to ignore it. The house is on fire. It's like, oh, thank you. So sometimes it's like, you got to listen to these other sides of us, the shadow side, and ask it, what are you here for? What are you in my life for? Not to make me feel bad, but also to, help me grow. And then the other part about the childhood, I find that the kids that, they had childhood trauma, I think those people in their lives are there to do that to them, because that's something in their life that they need to overcome. And like Joe didn't want to, or people that didn't want to get up and talk. It's like, oh, no, I felt really bad when I was a kid. But maybe that's in their chart also says, no, you have to be a speaker. And they're like, no way, I'm not doing that. Well, it's because that's something that they had to overcome in this life. And their soul didn't want it to be an easy ride. They needed it to be a little tougher. So they needed some resistance in going forward. That's why they got the childhood trauma in that way.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. You always have such wisdom, Joan. Because, yeah, I didn't mention the fact that, the shadow side isn't bad. When we start judging ourselves as being bad, then that sort of like brings on more of the bad. That's
the bad part.
Yeah.
It's the judgment of the bad, that's the bad. It's not the bad thing. It's the judgment of it.
Yeah, so it's acceptance. That's the key word there. Accept who we are, because there's nothing wrong with, like the yin and the yang, the positive, the negative. We have to accept it. And like you say, we learn from the shadow side. It teaches us so much. But accepting it is really going to heal it, instead of saying, because when we start telling ourselves we're bad people for feeling the way we do, then that's going to be a major issue and problem for us. It's going to create more bad behavior, right? Of fear, because like, I'm a bad person. How do you get over that? You got to accept we all have these emotions. All of us feel jealousy at some point. It's part of being human. All of us feel anger at some point. It's part of being human. And all of us feel sadness, and we will, because we will lose everything in this world at some point. So we have to really balance what that's all about, and that it's just a part of who we are. Acceptance was the key word there. I love that. And, we help, the shadow side helps us understand ourselves more. So it's a healing to understand it. It's very much a part of psychology. When you study psychology, the shadow side is there to help us understand ourselves. And we can't get rid of it. It's going to be there. So we better accept it and learn how to use it to understand ourselves and others more. It's okay. I love that. So beautifully said, Joan. That really helps me understand. You added another dimension to it that needed to be expressed and added to that. Thank you so much. Okay. Anyone else want to add to that, or any more said, Joan? Well, we can look at the astrology now, because this is going to give us more tools for thought. Because, every single time in life where the planets are moving and changing all the time is so profound in telling us what the mass consciousness is thinking and what they're doing. So let me go ahead and let me make sure I have everything here for you to see the astrology. And remember, I'm going to put this really simply. If you don't know astrology, do not worry. We will explain what's going on here with the astrology chart. So today is September 6, 2022. And I always start it for noon, where I'm situated in Dallas. And I find it astounding, really. I didn't even see this when I first pulled it up, that K2 sits exactly on the ascendant degree. Remember, the ascendant degree is the sign that's rising on the eastern horizon at that time. So in Dallas, Texas, at 12 noon, the ascendant, the rising, the eastern horizon was 21 degrees of Libra. But look, this is so rare that K2 is exactly 21 degrees of Libra. And what's astounding, really, is it's to the second. Look, 2116, 2116. It's almost like, I planned it that way because it's to the friggin' second. Usually it's 21 degrees and the seconds aren't exact. What in the world can I imagine that this could possibly mean? Well, let me explain for those of you that don't study astrology. K2 is it's what's beyond this world. Okay, it is not a part of this world. In Vedic astrology, we call it the moksha karaka. What does moksha mean? Liberation from this world. So for the moksha karaka, karaka means indicator of, so it's the indicator of moksha, which is what is spiritually liberating from this planet Earth. To have that exactly on the ascendant tells me that today at this time, we're going to get messages that I feel are beyond this world. This is, if you want to just say, K2 is spirituality. So we're getting the spiritual truth of what is going on in this world at this point in time. And out of this class, because I didn't even plan it this way, it just happened that K2's 21 degrees, 16 minutes. And it's in Libra. Libra is the sign of balance. And if you know the symbols for Libra, that they use the scale. The scale for balance and justice is what Libra's about. So what we're trying to do, and what we're doing with this class and our work on ourselves, is to find balance and to find justice in this world. So what does that generally mean? To find compromise. You know how they say, for those of you that studied Western astrology a million years ago, well, maybe not a million years ago, but it was for me, they would always say that Libras can't make up their mind. Do you know why? Because Libra is the sign that can see both sides of the situation. And when you can see both sides, there's always two sides to a coin. When you can see both sides of the situation, it's very hard to make a decision. So I always say probably the best judge in the world would be someone that's a Libra, because they aren't biased. They try to look at both sides of the situation. And actually in this class today, I am trying to ask all of you to always look at both sides of the situation. I know we all have our biases, and our biases are there because of our upbringing. You know, if somebody was mean to you, let's say an older man is mean to you, guess what? You're going to have some kind of reaction to an older man. You'll try to, if your father was this mean man, then you may have some issues with men in relationships. It's just because that's what you took in as a child, and unconsciously it comes out. You know, I always tell my people in readings, it's so funny. I say, you know, psychology 101 always works. Why? What am I talking about? Because depending on how we viewed our mother for a man, that's going to be how he pretty much views women throughout his life, unconsciously, of course. But then again, for a woman, if her father left or if her father abused her, guess what? She's more comfortable with abusive relationships. So that's what she attracts, because that's what she's most familiar with. So what is that? I say that's psychology 101. We're attracted unconsciously more comfortable with the person of the opposite sex relative to our experience with our parents. For a woman, the father; for the male, the mother. So that's I want to bring that up because, well, hey, another thing I didn't even realize when I was speaking about all that, Libra rules relationships. Libra is the 7th sign. So this tells us that from this chart that we have to look at relationships more objectively, right? Look at the other person's side from the situation. This is going to help us with our relationships, because in this chart, K2 sits on the ascendant, which the ascendant generally in a birth chart, but this is like the astrology, the prashna for the now. The prashna means this chart is telling us what's happening for now. In prashna, we pull up prashna charts sometimes in astrology when somebody asks you a question, because you can pull up the time the question's asked to get the answer. But I just pull up the chart to pretty much tell us what we need to know from today. What's the message from today? And this tells us that we have to be, that we are looking for spirituality, and we're looking for balance. We're looking to look at both sides of the situation. Everyone has a valid point that they feel. And once again, our feelings and our reactions are set by our early experiences in our life. But that doesn't always have to control everything when you come into awareness that the reason why you're reacting the way you do is simply because of your past. You don't need to react like that. You can see it from other viewpoints and come from a different opinion without just naturally reacting. In other words, get outside of yourself and analyze it so that you are coming from a place of understanding and what other people are experiencing. So that's what I get from that, relationships. But you know, in this chart, there is still, and there's going to be for a long time, Rahu, and Rahu's in Aries. Aries is a sign that's more about the self, the individual. You know, I always say Aries are the babies of the zodiac. Why do I say that? Because it's the first sign of the zodiac. It represents new birth, beginnings. But babies don't realize they're inconveniencing people because they just simply cry when they need something. And they get it. Very Aries-like. Nothing wrong with that. Aries get what they want, right? Libra is always kind of thinking about, well, what's the other person want? Libras put other people first, usually, but it inconveniences themselves. And the more they do that, the more resentful they become. Aries doesn't become resentful because they don't even realize they're inconveniencing people. We have to pretty much have a duality and a balance of both. It's okay to ask for what we want. And it's definitely okay to be considerate of others. So there's always the balance of the opposing signs you see in astrology that we have to look at. And with Aries and Libra, it's the most obvious opposition of signs. But Rahu being in Aries, sometimes people are going to be more about themselves. And with Uranus, they may not. Uranus is the planet that deals particularly with sudden, unexpected events. So people have rash decisions and rash judgments about things while these two planets are in the same sign. So, but here's where I want to go with all of this, because right now Mercury is pretty much stationing because it's going to turn retrograde on the 10th of September. By the way, that's why I'm starting my class on the outer planets on the 10th. Mercury is the planet of the mind, intelligence, learning. And it couldn't be more powerful than being in its exaltation sign of Virgo. So those of you that don't know astrology, let me just say this: Mercury's best sign to be in is Virgo. Why? Because Virgo is very scrutinizing, critical thinking. It's Mercury being in that sign deals with great thought, and it deals with great learning and high intelligence. Anyone that's got Mercury in Virgo is incredibly smart, plain and simple. So Mercury being in Virgo right now gives us this critical, scrutinizing mind, that where we can really think with deep, profound thought. It's a time where our thoughts are more meaningful. And believe it or not, the degree marking where Mercury is its most powerful, of course, the whole sign it's exalted in, but they say that 15 degrees of Virgo is the highest point. Mercury is less than a degree from that point. Okay, so what does that tell us? It is a time that we can use our mind for critical thinking, for scrutinizing, getting answers like never, ever before. But here's the next beautiful thing. Jupiter aspects it. And Jupiter is going to, Jupiter has been, well, it's at 12 degrees. It's within 2 degrees orb of opposing that Mercury. What does Jupiter do? Jupiter expands things. Jupiter makes things bigger. Jupiter is opportunities. So with it aspecting Mercury, there is this great expansion of thought, mind, and consciousness, and with learning power, with intelligence. And both the planets Mercury and Jupiter do rule traveling as well. So it's not a bad time to travel, even though we know that, even though we know that Mercury being retrograde causes all kinds of problems in the world of traveling, because it just does. Mercury rules travel and it rules our mind and communications. Therefore, when it goes retrograde, people are still trying to force things to move forward instead of taking that time to pull back and relax, reflect, review. That's what Mercury retrograde is good for. And it's going to be retrograde till, I forgot. Does anybody remember the day that Mercury, it's going to go retrograde on the 10th. Does anybody know the day that it's going to turn direct? I'll look it up if nobody.
I think it's the 2nd, Joni, October 2nd, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I should know that. I write all this stuff, but hey, I write stuff. I don't know if you're like me, but I write it and I forget it. For the most part, but for certain things I never forget, you know, like well, coming up here, I know Mercury's going to turn retrograde on the 10th. So on the 2nd of October, it's going to turn direct. So for those 2 weeks or so, you are to review, reflect, to reassess things in your life. And it will be so meaningful because Mercury is in this position of great thought, communication, the mind, and Jupiter expands it even all the more. And while Mercury is retrograde during this period, Jupiter's retrograde too. So it's saying this is definitely a time to go back and reassess something. It's going to really make a difference in what you're doing in the future. Because maybe there's this missing piece. Well, not maybe, definitely there's this missing piece that you're going to find that is going to be so powerful for you to get things done. Get things done like, wow, it's an incredible time to get things done. Now, Saturn has gone back to Capricorn, and it will be there till about I think the 3rd week of January. That's going to go into Aquarius. But while it's there retrograde, think about all these planets that are retrograde. It is really a time to reflect back on things. It truly is. But it's going backwards, and it is incredibly strong at this point because it's going to go back to 24 degrees where it's going to be squaring Uranus there. You're going to see some crazy things happening in the world as Saturn and Uranus square off to each other. That's going to be towards the end of September, about the 3rd week of this month, that it's going to be 24 degrees. Now, another thing that's going to be happening this month, and I'm going to do a YouTube on it, which is very important, is Pluto is stationing around this 2-degree mark. I find it extremely fascinating that I'm going to be doing this outer planet talk, and Pluto is stationing around 2 degrees of Capricorn. And let me just throw this out here. Both President Biden has a planet at 2 degrees of Cancer. It is his Jupiter. But get this. Did you know that Donald Trump has his Venus at 2 degrees of Cancer as well? And that's a degree that Pluto is stationing across those 2 planets with both individuals. That's why you see so much in the news about the both of them right now. And let me tell you, there's going to be a huge repercussion with that, because Pluto is huge transformation and change. And not only that, in the next year and a half, Pluto's going to make its return in the United States chart. So this outer planet is speaking volumes of information of what is due to come very, very soon. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump didn't have to go to prison. Let me tell you that. And what is that going to create in the world? Imagine half of the United States voted for him, whether you like him or not. There is a big divide between this. And I will say this as a defense for the opposite side against Trump. I will say Trump started all of this. All of this started with Trump. Now, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? That's what I'm here to figure out from what Pluto's doing. I'm not gonna tell you my complete analysis with this, because to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't come to my complete realization of what this is going to do. But I do know this is going to create great havoc in the United States. But those of you in Europe, hey, it's happening in your country too. Because of the square between Saturn and Uranus. But I find it so interesting that Pluto is at that degree mark and affecting these two men that are throwing rhetoric across from each other. Mainly, I don't think I've heard Trump say much, because with Pluto opposing his Venus in his 12th house of prisons. I got to analyze this a little deeper to figure out what I think this means and what's going to be happening. And I'm trying my hardest to be objective. And trust me, guys, I get the objective viewpoint from both sides, because my kids are always correcting me with certain things. So, and I know all of you guys have people in your family that gives you the viewpoint from both sides. And this is good. Because what are we looking at with Libra? There's two sides to the coin. And neither person is 100% right. And neither person is 100% wrong. So we've got to come from this Libra spirituality is what I'm seeing, and not get so caught up in who's wrong or right. This political thing is destroying the world, and it's got to stop at some point. It's got to. And there's no way we can say one person's completely wrong or completely right with what we're doing, if we want to create the balance and the peace and the light in this world. All right. So we've got to try to make sense of this, because the world is so polarized and divided right now. We're the only ones with our peaceful thoughts and how we work our lives that we can make a difference in what is coming down the road. I heard today, I couldn't believe it. This was astounding to me. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard today on the news that the Pope says we're headed for World War III. The Pope said that. I couldn't believe it. I don't know what he's basing it on, but hey, maybe he knows a little astrology, right? But this is where we're headed with this opposition. And, you know, I know a lot of you are coming from different positions in your countries. I'm sure you could tell us stories that would blow our minds about your leaders. It's everywhere. You know why? It's in the astrology. Mars is getting ready to go retrograde. Mars is in Taurus. Mars did, I think probably what, 2 days ago, Mars was in a trinal aspect to Mercury. But you know what that means for those of you that take any of my courses, it means that they're conjunct in the Navamsha whenever there's a trinal aspect. So you see over here. So what does Mars and Mercury together mean? Well, Mercury is communications and Mars is war. So guess what? Everybody's at odds. And the fact that in the Navamsha it goes to the sign of Taurus, hey, people are so rigid that they're right. I'm right, you're wrong. How are we ever going to come together with a peaceful atonement with these opinionated and stubborn viewpoints? We've got to compromise on some way to make things work in the world. You know, and I've said this so many times, no one ever wins a war. It's a terrible thing. We've got to see where the other person's viewpoint is coming from, no matter how corrupt we may think they are. Why are they doing this? And if we understand just a little inkling, then maybe they can understand why we feel the way we do. And that will bring peace. Because what of all is the sign Libra supposed to represent? Peace and relationship. We have, I think this is the most important symbol for today, that we are here to come from a place of peace and trying to heal spiritually through peace. And if you do anything, just pray for peace in the world. But here's my main thing I want to say with that. When you pray for peace, let it go and say, I don't have the answer. May peace come from the divine, whichever way is best for the world. Because you know, so many people say, I want peace, but I want that leader destroyed. That's what's going to bring peace. That's not peace. The only way we can come from a place of peace is by praying that may the best thing happen for the highest good of the world to bring peace. And remember what Mother Teresa said. They asked her, would you participate in a protest against war? She said, absolutely not. But I will participate in a protest for peace, to have peace. I will participate in that, not in anything, because when you say war, you're actually empowering it. When we say, I don't want war, remember when you say the word war, your subconscious mind does not say, I don't want. It just knows war. So what we need to empower is the word peace. But it may not come the way you think it should. You got to let that go and just allow whatever way the divine is here to create peace in the world. That's what we want, because we don't have all the answers. We may think we do sometimes, but I guarantee you, none of us have all the answers. So I want our prayers to be, when you end your meditation or your prayers, may peace come to our world in whichever way is for its highest good. Don't put your opinion on it, is all I'm trying to say, because we don't know what is for the highest good sometimes. We may think we do, but we don't. So that is my take on the astrology. Another thing, one more thing I just noticed, there's a lot of things here, but the moon, when I pulled this up, is at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. So in other words, this is right before it changes into Capricorn. Remember, the moon moves a degree every 2.5 hours. So around 2 o'clock, the moon will go Central Time, but probably about 2.5 hours from, or a little less, from when I pulled this chart up at noon, the moon will be, in Capricorn. And when it's in Capricorn, guess what it's going to be sliding over by the end of the day? Pluto. We're going to see some deep, dark stuff come out. And that may just be reminiscent in our own lives. I want you to take this in terms of yourself, not just world events. So what can you see that you can heal that is deep and dark and healing? Remember, here's what I always say about the planet Pluto. Pluto will always eliminate anything in our life that is not growth producing, right? So what do you think that means? It's probably going to be the thing that you love the most, that you're most attached to, but you got to let it go because it's not growth producing. And I always say, and this is so true, that once somebody goes through a Pluto transit over one of their personal planets, especially the sun or the moon, that 2 years later, they look back and they go, thank God that happened, because I couldn't be where I am today. But at the time, you thought it was the worst thing in the world that was happening, because it forced you to let go of something that you needed to let go of. That's what Pluto is all about. So I hope I didn't go over anyone's head with the analysis of the astrology. Another thing that's coming up here, and I don't think it's till October, but Venus and the Sun are going to be together. They're together right now here, but there's a wide orb. The closer they come together, that means Venus becomes combust the Sun. And what that means is Venus rules relationships, Venus rules Libra, right? So it rules relationships. So the tighter it gets with the sun, the more difficult relationships will become. I think that happens in October, November, when Venus and the sun will come together in Libra. And so relationships will be something we all have to work on during that time. That's all it is. And it's really going to be reminiscent more around the time of the eclipse, which is October 25th. We're going to be talking about that a lot. And then there's a lunar eclipse on November 8th. And really in that window, that 2-week window is going to be a really, really deeply spiritual time, very dark. We all have to turn within. We'll be talking a lot about all of this during those times. So we have a lot that's coming up for us, but use this incredible Jupiter-Mercury time for reflection, for review, for relaxing and looking deep within ourselves, how we can change our lives and what the missing pieces that we missed before, it's going to come up for all of us. And that's a beautiful thing because it's going to give us incredible foresight into how we can improve and help ourselves in business and in relationships, everything. But remember that Pisces Virgo axes can deal with victims. So do not come off as a victim. Every time you start blaming something or somebody else for something, stop it and say, you have the power to change it. Don't be blaming something else, because then you just gave away all your power to change whatever's not working. Take that power back. And that is when you'll have the capability and power to change your life. Okay, so I pretty much said everything I wanted to say today. Please, the floor is open for anyone that wants to add any insights or just tell us how you're feeling right now. If you're having a difficult time or share anything. Now is our time of sharing till the half hour. We have around 15 minutes to share.
Everyone's really quiet today, by the way.
They are. I know. They really are.
I'm one of the things I noticed in the pictures, I was kind of quiet. I wanted to give the floor to other people. But the red shorts and the blue shorts, it kind of stood out as kind of like this political,
I didn't even notice that.
emotional thing that's, and I think for myself personally, it's been like my liver enzyme results came back better. So yay me. But other than that, it's like, oh, man, I feel that pressure. I feel the emotion, that water and that waterfall. You know, this whole thing is just emotionally exhausting, makes me want to just go lay down and take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's depressing and sad to see the state of our world in such disarray because of the people that choose to run it, that we supposedly elect, and they're just horrible leaders. It's sad that Trump had to represent such a divide. And I think if he does go to jail, it's going to be horrific because, you know, I think the whole thing is that people are going to feel like they don't have a voice. That the people that, you know, that this whole thing has been since day one that he took office, they were after him from the very day one. And it's like, people are going to say he never even had a chance to be president, and they're going to feel really taken back. And then the in our face, you know, Hunter Biden chaos with his lovely background really sets the tone of how people feel politically too about, you know, just the disgust and how people have abused their places of power. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is, he's not the greatest person on the planet, but the reality is he got to represent something so that we could all see it. And I love what you said, Joni, too. It's like our children, which mine are 21 and 27, definitely have a different perspective, you know, politically. They're more in tune with the earth and peace and not really wanting to pay attention other than they know that maybe they're just ignorant, and that youthful ignorance is nice and they're lucky to be in that position. Is it going to play out well? You know, are we going to have a world war? Are they going to get sucked into their stupidity of not having, you know, the innocence will be taken away because they might get sucked into something that they have to stand up for, get put into a corner. You know, we're all hoping that doesn't happen. But I think that's probably why I'm exhausted. You know, there's just so much concern about all that. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear other people talk. It's so quiet today. Everybody wants to take a nap, I think. So,
Can I say something?
Of course.
So I've had to take a little bit of a break during the class and just watch the replays, because it has gotten kind of political a lot of times in here. And I've had the unfortunate privilege of meeting both Trump and Biden. And I just wish everyone would do what you said and really step back, because people don't know the bad things that have happened to people I know because of both families. But not all leaders are horrible people. And by saying that, it puts it all out there. There are really good people on both sides of politics that fight for us every day and in our military. And I just want us to also, maybe if we're fixing the narrative about ourselves and about politics and about the world, like, let it begin with us as well. For the world, for the country, for our local people. It's ripping our children apart. It's ripping our communities apart. And I can't even be a part of this all the time because of people think so highly about a man that like rips apart people I know. At a personal level, I know people that have completely lost everything that they have so that someone will just have more.
Mhm.
And that's not okay with me. And
Yeah.
it shouldn't be okay with anybody. No one in this group would take from people just so you would go bankrupt. And I just hope that we can heal that together. That would help me heal if people could see that things aren't the way it's portrayed on TV. And
Right.
people aren't just after people for doing nothing wrong on both sides. If
Mhm.
both people go to jail, then that's what needs to happen on both sides.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting me speak. I'm really sorry if I didn't mean anything negative at all. I promise.
You didn't say anything negative at all, Lynn. You didn't at all. You were coming from the heart and you were saying, and you're right. Both guys have done bad things and both guys have done good things.
I'm literally from New York and Delaware, and I intimately
Wow.
I've been in both of their lives on a
Yeah.
personal level, and I know people have gotten hurt, and
Yeah.
not pretty. And if you saw my eyes, if you saw the people that went and lost everything,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to
And you know, I always
act things.
say this too. I say, don't judge somebody you don't know at all. I mean, none of it. I mean, you do, but I've never met either guy. I really don't know them. How can I be judging them from what other people are saying?
Like
It's-
literally, like my roommates and stuff in New York City have been touched, and like there's just things that if we all would, like, we don't know our own uncles and our own like we don't know everyone in our town. Like you'd be surprised, right, when you find
Right.
out somebody stole something, or it's just like that. It's just that they've gotten away with it to the highest levels, that but
Right.
not everyone that gets into politics wants that to happen.
Yeah. So we all have to pray, as I said, for the highest good to come for our planet, regardless of what we think it is. Just let the divine figure it out for the highest good of our planet, and
Yeah.
be totally unbiased when you put that prayer out there. That's what I think personally. So yeah, because I mean, this divide has gotten so frigging ridiculous. It's got to stop at some point, and I don't want it to surmount into a world war or a civil war. But the way it looks right now, it could happen. So we have to be the light. This is the only thing we can do right now. We can't go, we can't, you know, we don't have the power to be on TV and start saying whatever we feel, but we don't have all the information either. You know, both sides are portrayed very ugly by whatever news broadcast you're looking at. You know, they're very biased, both of them, you know, depending on what channel you're watching. They're very, very biased, and we can't really tune into that because we don't know both sides. Lynn, you said it so beautifully. Thank you for that. I really appreciate. I know it's kind of scary because, you know, I'm always scared to say anything about politics. You know why? People demonize you. You're the devil incarnate if you say anything nice about the person they hate. Or, you know, it's just the way it is. I remember when I was at the conference in 2016, and I clearly saw that Trump was going to be president, and Hillary wasn't going to be president by looking at her daughter's chart. I saw it clear as day. I was going to say it, but there was a panel of astrologers, 13 astrologers, and every single one said that Hillary would be the next president. I'm thinking, well, am I wrong? I just couldn't do it. And when I told a lot of people before the panel, I mean, Ray Merriman was so excited because here was going to be, he hates Vedic astrology. He's a Western astrologer. And he was dying for me to say it and be wrong, you know, so he could say, see, I told you Vedic astrology isn't the right astrology. So I was so scared, but I told him, I said, Trump is going to be the next president. And I didn't say it. But I said Hillary Clinton will not be the next president. Look at her daughter's chart, blah, 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 blah. So I said clearly without saying it that Trump would be, and I said, look at Trump's chart. Here's this trine, here's this, here's that, everything's hitting. And look at, he just went into a Jupiter Dasha and blah, blah, blah. I said, you know, I was, in other words, without saying he will be the next president. His chart looks the best. Hillary won't be president. And everyone demonized me at that conference. And to this day, I'm not invited to those conferences anymore, just because of that. And you guys have to understand how I feel about it. I'm trying to look at both sides of the coin, but just because of that, they say that I'm not invited to these conferences anymore because of my political views. So
I knew Hillary too, by the way. But I know Hillary.
Oh my God,
Hillary too, by the way. And I will also say this about what's happening with Biden's son. Someone mentioned about going to jail or whatever. If he should go to jail, he should go to jail. But just like, it's just like Biden isn't Biden's son either. Like our children and me, my mom is a priest. I did things that let my mom down. And she shouldn't be fired from her job because I did things in my 20s that didn't make her look good. So just keep that in mind too. Just like Trump's kids might not be criminals either. If you know what I mean, that you're not guilty just because you're in a family. So we all have to remember that there's good and bad, and everyone, like you said in the beginning, our shadow things are going to come out on both sides of us and all these people in the world. And I hope that I become a better person, and I hope they become a better person for whatever happens.
Well, you will. You don't say hope, you say I am a better person because of this, right? Yes. And you're a better person by being so candid and truthful with what you just shared with us. And we all walk away from this with a better understanding of, you know, hey, probably what it all boils down to is the media's in it for their ratings. And the media kind of controls our thinking process. But hey, we can be in better alignment with our thinking process if we stand back and we take the spiritual high road of balance and quit all this, because this is what's tearing us all apart. And it's sad. I don't like the way families are being torn apart. I don't, you know, that's not all because of something, whatever the media is portraying to the world that we're supposed to believe in. And, you know, and everyone wants to blame Biden for the state the country's in, but it's the pandemic. It is nothing, there's no country in the world that's prospering and doing well because the pandemic caused it. I don't know why they're talking about Russia. It's the pandemic that caused all of this. So we have to really stand back and let go of judgment. That's all I got to say. Let go of judgment and come from a place of acceptance. It's probably what those pictures are trying to tell us. To let go of it, and then we will feel what? We'll feel free we'll feel free and happy and emotionally cleansed if we let go of all those hidden fears from the dark and the shadow. Don't you want to be happy? Remember what the Course in Miracles says, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Let it friggin' go, right? Let's be happy. It's
Well,
gonna
my 21-year-old was saying to me that, the way our system is run with this divisive thought, red against blue kind of a thing,
Yeah.
is basically doomed. We're not united, and
Yeah.
we need to come to a place where we actually, can meet and have kind of like the common ground to move forward. And they play us, the news completely plays us.
Yeah.
To want to be divisive against one another. The reality is that we really don't want to be in a position where we don't like someone because of
Right.
who we voted for. That's like ridiculous. It didn't used to be that way.
No.
In fact, it was a private moment. You were supposed to go and put your vote in, and no one knew what the hell you thought or why you thought it, and it shouldn't have mattered. And, but, they're playing us to the T. And like, I think that the basis of this whole class, like today, if we could get something from it, would be that, and bringing up your grandkids, here you have the most naive, these young kids,
Right.
And in my son saying to me this last week, it's like, Mom, the politics of this stuff, if you start listening to the news at all, you get so caught up, you get so angry, you get so upset. And like you say, I get it. Thank you for coming forward and voicing how you feel about, your personal information about Trump and so forth. And I just feel like it's sad that whether people know the negative about a candidate, we're still in a position where they're actually trying to take away people's ability to choose someone, which is that's the you know what I'm saying? It's like they're trying to taint that. And I think that's where all these people feel that, whatever. I don't like the idea of it. I want peace. I want the happiness. I want the world to move forward. Most leaders of most countries get caught up in they get caught up in serving the people around them versus serving the people. And I think that's where I think we see most of this happening right now.
Right. And remember this, we don't know the answer. So
No.
the universe is going to have an answer. And everything is happening for a reason. Okay. So what may come of this, who knows? We don't know, but something's going to come of this. And I believe always it's going to be healing. So I don't know if it's a third party that comes out or something, but something good is going to come out of this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be out there. It's kind of like a Pluto transit, right? It's the worst thing ever that's happening in our life. And 2 years later, we'll look back and go, thank God that happened, because we couldn't be where we are today. It's probably, especially for the United States, I know, probably for those of you that are in different countries, probably Pluto might be aspecting something in your country's chart that's going to let go. But we've got a big fat Pluto return. Pluto takes 244 years to go through all 12 signs. And guess what? Our Constitution was signed somewhere around that time. So Pluto is returning to where it started. And that simply means major transformation and going through a crisis that feels like the worst time ever. 2 years later, we'll look back and go, whoo, we had to go through that to get to where we are. So remember that when you get upset by what's going on in the world, because everything's happening for a divine reason. And I always believe the good always prevails, and it does. It will. Okay, so it is. Anyone want to say any last quick things? It is We're on the half hour now. It's time.
I just thought of like one more thing, and
Good.
it's kind of crazy, and hopefully it would bring it all together. But I actually live on the street in New Jersey where Cassidy is from, the one that testified in the trials. And I can tell you that her family is beyond Republican, and she is true red, and her dad is our tree guy. And I can say that she went to a very good high school where she learned how to advocate and stick up for herself. If that helps anyone, she's not like some kind of hidden liberal or like trying to hurt our country. And
Wow.
she's had death threats, and people in our town have like actually tried to aid her in staying safe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad what's going on. It really, really is sad. People are just trying to do good, and, you know,
So let it all come out on all sides, because they're real people that are really standing up for our country, that are in danger and hopefully we can all unite over it instead of pointing fingers. It's like a woman who's raped, like don't attack her because she was telling the truth or something along those lines. And that's what it feels like a lot.
yeah. Yeah. They're blaming the victims.
Blaming victims, and we should be listening for who needs our support.
I agree.
That's all. Sorry. Hopefully that would reunite. That was supposed to unite.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. I appreciate everything everyone said. We're all together in this, and we all want the same thing. This is what I always say. We want peace, we want happiness, and we want people to come together again. That's what we want. And stay focused in those desires instead of all this garbage out there. It's all, bringing us down and really causing havoc in our lives. So let's just pray for the good of our world to transpire. So
yeah. Joni, just may love and compassion and justice prevail always.
yes, beautifully said. Absolutely. So we will end on that note. Thank you, Janine. That needs to be what we take away from this. And if that is what we take away from this, which it is, we're going to have a great week. Okay. All right, everybody. I will see you next week. And don't forget, we have an amazing person at the end of this month, Christiane Northrup. And, most of our people here are women, and we're getting older. She has some answers. she's one of my clients. I read for her, and she's been on Oprah 10 times. And she's, if you see her accolades and the book she's written, she can really help us better understand our hormone balance as we get older. Very, very important. So anyway, you won't want to miss her at the end of this month. Okay. So I'll see you guys next week. What a great class. Don't forget the 3 things that we're supposed to do this week, which is transcend limited beliefs, embrace change, experience the fear, and take action. Okay, so namaste. I will see you guys next week. Thank you again. Beautiful class.
Namaste. Love you.